Greetings, Taku Faithful. Thank you for joining me again this week. Once again, it's Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I'm here to bring you all yet again another Game of Thrones episode review right here on Otaku Assemble Weekly. And as always, I'm here to bring you the latest in this week's Game of Thrones episode review. And this is my review of Season 3, Episode 6, entitled The Climb. Now, general thoughts on this week's episode. I thought it was a pretty good episode, and I would put it right alongside last week's episode. I think as far as plot progression, setup, character development, and just the overall quality of the episode, I think mirrors that of last week's episode. I also don't really have too many thoughts about this week's episode for the reason I just mentioned. I think that one thing I think they've managed to do well this season is that with episodes 5 and 6 being the middle of the season, I think they did a pretty good job setting up what I'll refer to in this review as the bridge. The bridge is pretty much the midpoint of the story. You know, if you were to think of season 3 as being a sequel, right? Because I know that the Song of Ice and Fire books are an overarching story across multiple books. But if you were to think of the third book, or rather the third season, since I'm talking in respect to the series, if you were to think of the third season as kind of like a standalone story arc, if you would, right? Well, the bridge, the midpoint, is what connects the first and the second half. So the point I'm trying to make is this. What episodes 5 and 6 I think are doing well is how they are incorporating the plot elements from the first half and setting up for things to occur in the second half, and how they're bridging that gap, if you will. So that's what I mean when I refer to episodes 5 and 6 as being the bridge, the meeting point between both halves of the third season. And so the reason why I don't really have too many additional thoughts from this week's episode is because most of my thoughts on this week's episode are the same that they were in last week's episode. You had a lot of scenes that I felt were composite scenes. And this is what I mean. Where you had some of the character stories seem like they were two-parters. And if you were to look at, like, almost to the point where you could see episodes 5 and 6 being one episode. Because the character scenes in this episode complement the ones from last week's episode like a set almost, you know? Like two pieces of a whole set. So what I'm talking about is Robb scenes. Last week we got Robb's proposal to join up with Walder Frey and to set out to take Casterly Rock. Well, this week's episode we got the meeting with Frey's sons, right? Two parts of one, like, composite story plot point. Then look at Jaime. Well, Jaime had more than one scene in last week's episode, but pretty much like Jaime's scene in this week's episode, following up the last scene from last week's episode, feels like it's part of a set, like they're meant to be grouped together type thing. The same thing can be said about Jon and Jon's scenes, right? Like him and Ygritte, their fling in last week's episode, and then how that's now forming into somewhat of a formal relationship. That seems like, once again, like a composite scene, like two parts of one whole. So for the most part, in regards to like those type, oh hell, even the marriage proposals, same thing. However, though, I would say that that's more of a triptych than a diptych, because you do have to mention the well, no, not necessarily. Not necessarily, because you could group together that scene and Tyrion and Cersei's scene in this week's episode, and then Lady Olenna and Tywin's scene with... no, I think I'm stretching with that one. Anyway, but getting back to my main point. So like I said, I don't really have too many additional thoughts on this week's episode because a lot of the scenes follow up the ones from the previous episode almost like to the T. So that's that. The only scenes that I really want to comment on from this week's episode, I thought Arya's scene, and then the whole like Melisandre arriving to meet up with the Brotherhood, and the discussion between her, Thoros, and Beric, and then even this little twist that they've thrown in there where she meets Ygritte, which would have never seen that coming. I mean, they showed the scene. They showed in the recap at the beginning of the episode the scene when she was talking about Stannis, and when, you know, they said that her magic requires a king's blood and there are more people with his bloodline. But I would have never, I never would have put two and two together. I didn't even know that anyone was aware that Ygritte even existed, you know. I'm also curious how they found him. But maybe that'll be explained, maybe that won't be. All in all, though, I thought it was a very intriguing twist. Like I said, I didn't even consider that could happen. My thing is this, though, about that whole situation. I'm hoping that this will make Gendry more of a, I don't want to say more of a central character, because I'm not sure if his character will ever be as big as the main cast, but I'm hoping that this will, like, bring him into the story more, you know, give him a bigger role, give him something more to do, instead of just being part of Arya's company. Now, part of me thinks that's not going to happen, because part of me thinks that this might be some, like, sacrificial lamb / ritual type thing at work here, but I'm hoping it's not. I'm hoping that this will give him a bigger place in the story, give him more to do, to really stand out on his own, and to start breaking out of the whole supporting character list and start being more of a central player. But I think I'm being very optimistic on that aspect. And man, I'm still holding out for maybe Arya will want to stick around with the Brotherhood. I'm still holding out on it. Do I think it'll happen? No, not necessarily. But once again, that's one of the things I'm just kind of hoping for, because like I said in last week's episode, I just think that there are so many more interesting things that could happen to her being with the Brotherhood, and it would also allow for the Brotherhood to stick around longer instead of like them dropping Arya off and then going about their business and we only hear about them every now and then. This would kind of keep them around because one of the main characters is in their company. Do you follow? So that's one of the reasons why I'm hoping, for me, it's a win-win. We get to see Arya develop with this group of freedom fighters, but we also get to learn more about them at the same time. So that's why I'm kind of hoping she'll stick around. But once again, I don't think that's going to happen necessarily. Okay. I mentioned that already. All I'll say, since I did briefly mention Jon and Ygritte's scene, all I'm gonna say on that is that I like that it is becoming more of a relationship and not just a fling. I also like that Ygritte was the one who kind of put it in motion, and that she's kind of the aggressor of that relationship. I just thought I like that change in what is the romantic norm. You know, having the more assertive female, and the more, I'm not saying that Jon is necessarily a pushover, but he is somewhat of the more submissive male type. And I like that they're playing with that dynamic, because you don't see it often. And if anything, I think this would be the relationship that would work out best, because not only does it automatically play into the characters' personalities, but just the circumstance of their relationship is outside of the romantic norm. So I think all of that works pretty well. All those things complement each other very well. Let me see. What else did I want to talk about? The Tywin Lady Olenna scene, I liked. Once again, I still don't know what the Tyrell's end game is. I will say though that scene, especially the way, now of course, you know, I figured a conversation between those two would be something like that, and I actually did enjoy it, because those are two of my favorite characters. The thing is though, one thing I will say that I got from that conversation is I think that the bottom in the Lannister-Tyrell alliance is going to fall out a lot sooner than they've been leading on to. For the most part, they have set it up to be somewhat of the reluctant alliance. And we've been given all these ways in which this alliance can continue, but they haven't, I don't think they ever really did a good job at establishing why the alliance happened in the first place. Now, yeah, there are a bunch of reasons, but what would compel them to agree to it? And like I said, going last season and with the beginning of this season, like I said, we see all the pieces of how the alliance was formed, but I'm more interested in really finding out why the Tyrells did it. Did they just figure that, was it just a matter of Stannis is the common enemy? I don't think so. Was it a matter of, well, they figured they'd go with the winning side rather than the losing side? I don't know. Was it because after Renly died, they figured that was the best bet? I don't know. Was their power play, like, did it have something to do more with them wanting to assume more power? Don't know. All they do is they have given us enough, us the viewers, they've given us enough to consider all these possibilities. But they have yet to establish one straight, solid, this is the reason why. Because I don't think that the whole thing about Marjorie marrying Joffrey, I don't even think that's the main reason. You know, but like I said, we have enough evidence to suggest either one of them, and I guess it's just a matter of, well, pick what reasoning makes more sense to you. All I'm saying is, with this conversation, what it did was, it's making me think that it wasn't a mutual exchange. That's what I'm getting. I don't think that the Tyrells are satisfied with the alliance. And likewise, I don't even think the Lannisters are satisfied with it. And when you have two houses like that who have entered into an alliance reluctantly, then yes, that truce is going to get broken a lot sooner than expected. So I'm going to be keeping an eye out for that. Let me see, was there anything else before I get to the Littlefinger scene? Because, well, no, I can mention the Littlefinger thing now. My only comment on the Littlefinger scene is that they've just like completely pushed Littlefinger into like straight villain mode now. I mean, before he was the schemer, the backpedaler, you know, the middleman who works in between, you know, works in the shadows and works in between the lords and ladies and whatnot. And then in season 2, they developed him more as the opportunist, you know, the guy who's just out for himself type thing. Now, I think they just pushed him straight into full-blown, like, villainous territory. I mean, hell, his mustache might as well curl. Give him a fucking top hat, a cane, and a little one-eye lens, man, because he's like straight villain mode now. And I'm not saying that was anything surprising or something that was unexpected, but I don't know. I just kind of figured they would keep Littlefinger, you know, like I said, the whole backstabber, schemer, middleman thing. I just figured they'd keep that going with him. Now, that's not to say that he won't fulfill that role at any point in time in the future, but it certainly seems now that everyone is... No, I can't say everyone. I can't say that. Well, Varys for certain. I know Varys for certain. I think his fears of, you know, Littlefinger being this, you know, most dangerous man in King's Landing, and well, no, he said the most dangerous man in the Seven Kingdoms. Anyway, I think Varys, his what's the term I'm looking for? Negativity, his pessimism. Anyway, his thoughts on Littlefinger, I think, have only been reinforced with that scene in this week's episode. Like, now it's like, yes, Varys, I am the way you think I am. So that's that. And what was the other thing I wanted to talk about? I'm not really going to talk much about the Loras Sansa thing, because like I said, I still don't think those arranged marriages are going to work. I'm pretty sure that Tyrion and Cersei are going to play along for the time being, but I'm pretty sure they're going to find a way out of it. I don't think those are going to happen, or at least both. And even if one manages to, I don't think the other one will. Oh. The thing going on with Theon, I don't know what to make of Theon's story anymore. I really don't. Now, I'll admit, I think I had as much a problem with Theon's story kind of, you know, being that, what's the term I'm looking for? Not wild goose chase, but, you know, just that, you know, just going in circles type thing earlier in the season. I know a couple of people who had real problems with that, and the only reason why I didn't have as big of a problem with it is because of that one scene we got where Theon really did, like, you know, started reflecting on everything he's done and things like that, you know. I thought that kind of made it worthwhile. Also, I'm still hoping that what's happening with Theon, at least with the guy who's trying to rescue him, is the fact that he's been tricked, maybe. But this episode doesn't suggest that, you know. I don't know what to think of that. And seeing as how it's episode 6 already, and Theon's story hasn't really led anywhere, this is the first character story in this season that I'm starting to think shouldn't be here. I can't help but think that Theon, like, has no place in this season, you know. Yeah, I'm hoping that they change that really soon. But as of right now, with the exception of that one scene I mentioned from a couple of episodes ago, I don't see why Theon is even in this season. I don't. That's just the truth of it. I don't see why. Okay, so I think that pretty much covers everything I wanted to talk about. Yeah, so with that being said, this has been Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief. I want to thank you all for joining me again for this week's review. And until next time, peace.